Welcome to our JavaScript web course. In this video, I will show you how to use a simple if conditional statement and a simple if-else conditional statement. In programming, we typically execute code based on a certain condition being true or being not true. So I will demonstrate this by showing you the code on the left and the web page on the right. First, let's take a look at the code on the left. Here we have our HTML document. I have my style element in the head section. I also have my script element in the head section. The only time we need JavaScript inside the body is when we're referring to an object in the body for purposes of displaying content there. So there's no reason to clutter up our HTML document with JavaScript that is just setting up or declaring variables or determining different conditions. Since we are not referencing anything in the page, that code can be placed in the head section. This code could also be placed in an external file. So here I have three variables, and I am using the let keyword to declare these variables. I have num1 set to the value of 100, num2 set to the value of 200, and result set to an empty string. The reason that result is set to an empty string is that at some point I am going to display content in this web page, and the content will be the value of the variable called result. If the page loads and that variable does not have a value, it will technically be undefined and could cause an error. So it's always best to initialize your variable when you declare them. If you know that the value is going to be string data and you don't know what the value will be, you initialize it to an empty string. If you know that the value will be a number, you initialize it to 0. Let's take a look at our if condition. So here we have the keyword if, and in parentheses we have a condition. And that condition will always contain a comparison operator, at least one comparison operator, and often it might contain a logical operator also. Following, we have an opening and closing curly braces. If that condition evaluates to true, the code inside those curly braces will execute. If it does not evaluate to true, nothing will happen. So this is a very simple basic if condition. I am testing to see if these two numbers are not equal. And if they are not equal, the condition will result to true. 100 does not equal 200. Therefore, the code inside the curly braces will execute. You always want to have some kind of test code inside your if statements to make sure that that statement is being read correctly. I am using two different approaches just to show you the difference. The first is a simple alert. And when I use an alert, I typically put some string data into the alert to tell me that that if condition has evaluated to true. Next, I am using the console. And in the console, I don't have a string message, but I have the actual condition, and that will be evaluated to either true or false. Before you start executing any code on the web page, make sure that your condition is being tested properly by using an alert or the console. So if this condition is true, which it is, this code will execute. Notice I am setting a value for my variable here called result. What I want to do is to display a message in the web page if that condition is true. And this is how I would do it. I have my placeholder here, ID equals display, and in the body section, at the very end of the closing body tag, I have the script tags, and I have document.getElementByID display.innerHTML equals result. We could have put this statement inside the curly braces in our if condition, but in that case, we would need to have all of that code inside our body tag, and as I pointed out earlier, that is not needed, and it clutters up your document. So when I run this code in the browser on the right, the first thing that we see is our alert. This is just a message that I put in there that is meaningful to myself, that indicates that that condition has been read and it is returning true. Once I click this OK, now we will see the result on the web page. They are not equal. That is the value that we set for the variable called result. When I access the console, I right-click, I go to Inspect, I click Console. Here we see it says true. Now I'm looking at another file. It is the same code, except that my if condition is not true. If num1 is the same as num2, 100 is not the same as 200. Therefore, the condition is false. If the condition is false, the code inside the curly braces will not execute. The code inside the curly braces only executes if the condition is true. So what happens in this case? If you look at the page being loaded in the browser on the right, you see that nothing happens. And that is the whole point. When you have a simple if the condition inside the parentheses is true, the code inside the curly braces will execute. If not, nothing happens. Now, supposing we wanted something to happen if the condition was not true. How would we do that? We do that using what is called an if-else conditional statement. So here we have two blocks of code. Notice that they are testing one condition. So here we are testing the first condition if num1 is the same as num2. Now I also have my test statements inside my first if block here in the event that that were true, so that I know that that condition is evaluating to true. However, we know that the condition is not true. We have an else block. So we have the keyword else followed by the opening and closing curly brace. Notice that there is no condition here because the else is still being used to evaluate the first condition. So if the condition is true, then we do one thing. Else, meaning the condition is not true, then we do something else. So if the condition is not true, the code inside the curly braces connected with the else will execute. So here I have my test statements inside the else, and notice I have a value for my result variable in both the if block and in the else block. So based on the condition being true or not true, either way, we're going to set a value for this variable, and we will be displaying the value for that variable in the web page. So now I have loaded that page in the browser on the right, and we can see that my alert inside the else is being executed. Therefore, I know that the else condition is being read. I click the OK, and there is my output on the web page. Should I open up the console? There we see that it is false. So here we have a situation where we have a value for a variable, and that value will be determined based on a condition being true or a condition not being true.